Jessica Eve from With Grace and Joy. Thanks for joining me today. I would like to offer you today some asanas that are very accessible in a home practice, which is my goal for you, is that you sort of unroll the mat and get your body moving as much as you can every day. I know that sometimes when I'm practicing at home, I find that I am favoring one side over the other, like my right over my left, or if I'm trying to still be mindful of the engagement of my left and right side, I still find there's just a tendency to hold one side a little longer, or maybe I'm not sure how long I held something. So today's postures are going to be mostly what I call even postures, meaning ones we don't do to the left and the right. They're more centered based. That way you don't have to keep track of time, or you don't have to worry about keeping the body even. I also think it's important to mention that if you're aware of energy, we have three main nadis lines, and we have what we call an Ida and a Pingala, which are our left and right side's energy, our yin and our yang. We also are probably aware of the fact that our heart is not in the center of our body, it's slightly on the left side. We also have uneven organs like our liver and our pancreas and our spleen. Even our intestines is a little bit more weighted to one side than the other. And then I'm sure as we've lived our lives on this earth, we've developed stories, scars, injuries, tendencies with one side over the other. For instance, we all have a dominant hand. Most of us have one dominant hand, a dominant leg. Perhaps we're driving gear shift, again, or manual cars using one side more than the other, or carrying a baby, or typing on the phone, or a bag. So it's a little erroneous to think that we are meant to be symmetrical, left and right. Just our internal designs aren't symmetrical, so our external design and efficiency and skill set should not necessarily be the same. So just to keep that in mind when you're practicing other classes, but for today we're going to try to just create a little neutrality and a little evenness throughout the body and not have to worry about how long did I hold right side or how that felt in comparison to the left side. We're going to start on the floor as we often do, and we are going to take some time to work the 6 actions of the spine. Now the 6 actions of the spine are forward and back bending. They are side stretching and twisting side to side. So for these first few moments, we will be working a little bit with the left and right sides of the body. But as we get moving, we'll try to focus on what, again, I call even postures. So here we are finding our seat. Let's arrive into that nice long neutral spine. Anchor down with the tailbone, draw the navel in, squeeze the ribs softly. Find the shoulders away from the ears and away from one another, and just close your eyes here and begin to draw the awareness inward as much as possible. Still maintaining an awareness to my voice, but just beginning to find the observation and the focus internally, perhaps starting at the base of your spine and sort of zippering up both the energy, the breath, and the awareness up the body until it arrives at the crown of the head. From here, we'll take the hands into the heart, and we'll just rise up and exhale, fold forward. So coming towards the earth, hinging at the hips. Keep the seat on the ground. Don't lift the bum. Keep the seat heavy. And let's come into a nice forward bend. Maybe we're quite high off the ground. That's just fine. Maybe we find ourselves completely surrendering into the earth. Let's just take a nice breath here. And gently begin to walk the hands up. So again, working this extension of the spine. Let's take the hands behind the hips, wider than the hips. Draw the elbows directly behind, pushing backwards and into the earth, and lift up through the hips, extending up through the sternum, just a little minor back bend. Let's come down. As we come into a neutral spine, create the right hand like a second spine, and then take that left hand and draw it up and over like a swimming motion till it comes to the right thigh, coming into a little mild twist. Let's come back, pivot that right hand so the fingers face forward, drop the left hand back where it was, press down with the knees and rise back just like we were a moment ago. As we come back down to the floor, sneak that left hand behind, turn the fingers facing the back, creating a second spine, so to speak. Lift that right arm up and over, taking it to the left thigh and coming into a little twist. Let's come back over. And then walk that right arm out to the side and extend the left over, palm facing down, maybe coming onto the forearm here if it feels right, but again, don't lift the seat. Keep the tailbone and the sit bone into the earth. Get a nice deep stretch through left side of the body. If it feels okay onto the head, look up to the ceiling and think about that right sort of breast corkscrewing up towards the sky. Let's come back up, place the left hand down, walking onto the fingertips so we're activating our arm. Bring the right arm up, turn the palm facing down. Here you can choose to either keep the left arm active or drop it down onto the forearm so you get a deeper stretch into side body. Just depends on what you want to work. Again, think about that left breast kind of corkscrewing or pivoting up to the ceiling and keeping that right sit bone anchoring into the earth, and we'll come up. Release the hands, let them just naturally relax at your sides, and as you exhale, drop the chin down to the chest, let the shoulders relax. Let's just take a few neck rolls here, taking that right ear to the right shoulder and the left ear to the left shoulder. So we're just working and softening the core. We're going to take it again. And maybe this time, if it feels okay, advancing the chin all the way up and over, making a circle. Again, just really taking it nice and easy on these delicate structures of the neck, taking it into the other direction, again, only if it feels okay on this side, up and over. Okay, so from here, I'm gonna just turn to the side and we're gonna draw the knees into the chest, create some compression. So bring the heels to the bum or the bum to the heels like I did. Wrap the arms around the knees, really squeeze the body. Open up through the back side of the body by pushing the thighs into the front side. Drop the shoulders away from the ears and let the head rest towards the knees or on the knees. Take some nice deep breaths, almost forcing, I use that word cautiously, the breath into the back side of the body. Tuck the pelvis lightly, draw the navel in, squeeze the ribs, and come into Navasana. So maybe we're here. Maybe we're here, maybe we're here, that's okay. Find what works for you today. Try to create a little bit of a tuck into the pelvis so the ribs are inching towards the hips. Keep the shoulders down and away from the ears. As we come into our next exhale, cross the legs, take the hands at the hips, pull up through pelvic rectum navel point and push into the shoulders. Drop the hips and come back into Navasana. Taking a breath. On that next exhale, crossing, pressing, and lifting. Dropping back down. Again, Navasana last time. Crossing and lifting. This time, uncrossing and lowering to the knees. Let's widen the knees and find an extension through the spine. So keep the seat heavy, hips into the heels. Keep the fingers high onto the fingertips. Palms are lifted, forearms are lifted, head is lifted. Just tuck the chin lightly so the crown is lengthening towards the front of the mat. Again, getting a nice stretch through the entire body and also slightly activating side body. So just kind of walk one hand a little forward and then one hand, that same hand, a little back. Okay, so from here, let's come back up, closing the knees and finding the hands mid-thigh line. Find the feet are together, so I'm just drawing my feet together, and we're going to pull the navel into the spine, squeeze the ribs, push into the hands, activate through the fingertips, and lift the knees. Good, bring it down, let's take it again, lift the knees. Again, lift the knees, push through the shoulders, find space through the shoulder blades. Let's take it 2 more times, lift the knees. And lift the knees. Okay, let's see if we can come up onto the tops of the toes or the tops of the feet, draw the navel in and find a little balance here. Let's take it again. And one more time, I'm going to use my hands just to achieve that position. Draw that navel in, squeeze the ribs. Good. Come back into all fours, or come into all fours, I should say. Find your alignment. Hips are on top of knees, wrists are in front of knees, shoulders are on top of the hips. Let's tuck the toes and then just take some pouncing back. So start to activate the foot bandha, the pada bandha. So coming onto the balls of the feet and bringing the weight into the heels really stretches out the feet. Bring some circulation into the toes, releasing the fascia. Let's arrive back to the tops of the feet and start to slide the hands forward. This time not coming into child's pose, so I don't want to move my hips back. I want to keep my hips as much as possible sort of perpendicular, or maybe parallel is a better word, to the earth. Maybe they come slightly forward, but they certainly don't move back. I bring the wrist and the fingers forward, drop to the forearms, try to drop the upper arms onto the earth, forearms onto armpits onto the earth, and the throat. Find a breath. If this feels accessible, you can tuck the toes and begin to straighten the legs, pressing through the back of the knees. Slowly dropping the knees, pressing through the hands and the forearm, drop the hips, and come into sort of a modified cobra. From here, let's release. Take the hands on either side of the breast and push up to one side and come down. And let's push up to another side and come down. And let's roll up one more time evenly into upward facing dog, pressing only into the tops of the feet, lifting through the thighs, pulling the hips forward and the shoulders come back. Good, let's drop back down to the knees and come into child's pose. We're going to take that one more time. Inhale, rise up to all fours. Exhale, slide down into this puppy press or Anahata Asana. Finding the posture that you might want. Arrive back onto the forearms, maybe drawing the hips a little bit more forward. Push through the hands, push through the shoulders, press the sternum forward. From here, release the lower back, so no activity in the back of the bum or the back of the legs, and pressing through the pelvis, let's lift the hands. Taking a breath, tucking the chin so we find a little length and release through the shoulders and the back of the neck. Release, coming down to one temple, turn the palms up, let the shoulders earth down to the ground. Let's take it to the other side, just releasing the head towards the other direction, temple down. Coming center, taking the hands on either side of the breast, pressing down with the tops of the feet, rolling or peeling ourselves off, pressing hips forward, shoulders back, upward facing dog. Lowering the body down, nice and easy. Inhale, lifting feet, lifting body. We've got arm choices here, here, secret prayer, or maybe extended in front of us, or my favorite is clasping the hands together in Baddha Hastasana. Press down with the pelvis, creating this fulcrum that lifts. Good, and releasing, tucking the toes, lifting up onto all fours, and finding that extension, neutralizing the lower back, and coming into child's pose. Maybe dropping the forearms to the earth now, or maybe still keeping it active and staying onto the fingertips. From here, we'll come up to all fours. Maybe we can transition just by rolling through the feet, widening the squat, and dropping the hips. Coming in now to Malasana. Take the elbows into the knees, opening the hips, pressing the elbows outward, opens the shoulders. So there's sort of a mirroring happening between upper body and lower body here. Finding a few breaths. And when you're ready, begin to release the hands towards the earth. Walk the fingers forward. Find, again, almost like some space in between the shoulder blades, like a bit of a rounded back, hunchback, and let the head hang. Find that the weight of the head is also working in tandem with the weight of the bum to achieve a nice length or spaciousness into the spine. From here, gently come back into that upright back, activate the core and the spine, and see if we can roll up to the tips of the toes. Keep the hips quite low. See if we can rise the shoulders a little higher. Good, let's come back down. Press the elbows into the knees, opening the hips, maybe opening the arms and looking up. Let's just take that one more time. Draw the hands to the heart, rise the shoulders above the hips, and see if we can come up to the tips of the toes. Again, try to keep the hips low. Don't lift the hips. And then from here, we'll release, find the hands onto the earth, and gently press down with the hands, look towards the navel, and rise the hips up. Keep the knees bent if you need to, and start to toe heel the feet slightly together, and begin to hang like a rag doll. The knees can be as bent as you need, but keep the hips forward. Soften the belly, don't engage your abdominals, and let the head really hang, looking towards the navel. Just take a few breaths here, maybe taking some rocks or some twists, maybe staying even or neutral. Gently, when you're ready, again keeping the hips forward and the legs as straight as you can manage, start to rise the body up. Keep the head heavy. Head is last to arrive. Arms continue to dangle. Press the hips forward. Drop the hands out to the side, palms facing out, shoulders wide and away from one another, and rise the head, coming into Samasthiti. So we've come into a standing position, and we could have a couple of options here in our own home practice. We could come to the top of our mat and perhaps come into some Surya Namaskara A's, which we'll get to in a little bit. But we're going to continue to work in just a more posture by posture framework. So we'll come to the middle of our mat, facing again the long way of the mat. And we'll take again a nice wide stance. So we're going to look as though our legs are about as wide as the mat in the narrow way. And we're going to come right back into that posture of Malasana. So if your knees felt a bit stressed in that posture, you can keep the hips a bit higher, or you can even sit in a chair, or maybe a little bit lower, use a block under the bum. If you have a major knee injury, then Malasana might not be a great choice for you, and you can take what we're doing a little wider or a more traditional squat instead of a yogi squat. So here we are, we're going to just ease the hips down to the earth. Remember not to sink into the arches, really press into the pinky side, so don't let this happen. Press and keep the pinkies engaged into the ground, which also serves to open the knees, which releases our hips. We're going to just take a few breaths here. Now we've got some options. We can just maybe come into some mild little twists, just playing around with range of motion. So not holding anything, just moving here. And we're going to take our hands to the heels and begin to straighten the knees just to the point where the hips are even with the knees. Draw the crown forward, activate the navel, and jet the shoulders back into the sockets. From here, straighten the knees as you drop the hands for support, and heel toe out to a wide-legged stance. Find, again, just some movement. So we are working through left and right side, but not holding and not worrying about doing the same thing, just feeling the body in these different formations. Let's come back through center and release. Keep the hips forward. Again, we can bend the knees if we need to, but ideally keeping it straight. Keep the hips forward. Let the head hang, looking into the chest. Draw the navel in. Arrive in a half back shape. Jet the shoulders back, lengthen through the crown. Let's release the hands out to the side and stand up. As we exhale, open the arms out to the side, maybe finding a little bit of turnout with the feet. Maybe not, just depends. I come from a dance background, so I always have that bit of a turnout. Let's take the hands, clasp them behind, squeeze as though the elbows are trying to touch, keep the palms together, extend through the sternum, exhale, hinge at the hips, lead at the heart, come into a nice forward fold. From here, maybe we find we want to widen a little bit more, to just try to see how deep we can take the arms forward. On the next inhale, rise it up. Release the arms out to the side. And then just take a little bit of shifts. Working through the hips. And toe heel it back. And bring it back down into a squat. From here, we're going to take our hands and drop them, fingers facing forward, sitting on what I call the shelf of our upper arm. So my hamstrings are on the back of my upper arm, and I'm going to draw my feet close to one another. Maybe I stay right here. Maybe I begin to cross. If I'm crossing, I'm going to push up through the shoulders. I'm squeezing the arms into the shoulders, and I'm pushing the shoulders away from the earth. If that feels accessible and easy, I can take some changes with my legs and ultimately bring both legs out, the hips slightly down, and the heart forward. Holding here, engaging what we call that pelvic rectum navel point, Mula Bandha. From here, I'm going to straighten my arms as much as possible and come back into that forward fold. I'm going to turn my palms up and walk them through the body as deep as I can allow. I'm going to shift a little bit into the hips because that's what I feel like I need right now. And then I'm going to come back, walk the hands forward, toe heel the feet together. Come into a slight bend, really spill the weight forward, reaching forward through the sternum, hollowing the pelvis out, and take the hands under, the arms under the hamstring till they come to the base of the sacrum. If I can, I'm going to clasp my hands and I'm going to try to straighten my legs as much as possible and tuck my chin. Gently, I'm going to bend the knees back down, plant the hands on the earth, fingers facing forward, create the shelf, and try it again. Press deeply with the fingertips and straighten the legs. From here, I'm going to slide it down, coming onto a seat, relaxing through the hip flexors and the back of the legs, shake out the legs a little bit, and we're going to come in back into some floor postures. And depending on where you've arrived, just taking one hand behind you and one hand in front of you and just advance the hips a little bit more forward. Keep the feet nice and flexed. Thighs are drawn towards the hips. Let's take the hands up. Exhale, plant the hands down and begin to walk forward. Maybe our availability is high from the earth. Maybe we can bring the chest all the way down to the ground. Taking a few breaths here. Gently and slowly, as though we want to stay there, rise back up and draw the feet together, coming into Baddha Konasana. Heels are into the pelvis. Knees could be up higher than mine, that's okay, but allow them to be as relaxed as possible coming into the earth. Let's again take the hands, walk them forward. Begin to tilt the pelvis forward so it becomes an acute angle to the earth, arriving at whatever is your saturation in this forward extension. Gently coming back up. Finding the knees into the chest, give yourself a little bit of a hug. Wrap the arms around and squeeze into the knees. So from here, I'm going to just kind of roll up to my toes and I'm going to turn to face again long ways on the mat. Dropping down to the knees, pressing hips forward, taking my hands, fingers facing upward if I can, keeping the glutes soft, pushing through the hip flexors, coming into Ustrasana. Rising back up. I'm going to take the hands into the heart for this next one. Just bending back. Let the head hang. Shoulders relax. And finally, keeping the palms facing outward, bringing the hands to the heels and pushing the hips forward. Last one. Release down to the heels and take a moment to neutralize. Draw the navel in, creating a nice long spine to nourish that lower lumbar. See if we can again just flip through the feet, come to the bum, extend the feet out into Dandasana. Inhale, rise up, two-piece fingers, piston hook the big toes. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lengthen. Rising through the crown, extend a little bit deeper into the forward fold. Release the hands, walk them forward, tuck the chin. Good. As we walk the hands back, see if we can lift the feet into Navasana and arrive back here. Keep those shoulders down and away, taking a few more breaths. And slowly lower, coming back into that staff pose or Dandasana. From here, let's bend the knees, bring the bum towards the heels, and we're going to gently lay back down, or lay down onto our backs, I should say. Find the navel into the spine, find the shoulders onto the earth. Let's lift the knees in towards the chest, and with a little momentum, the use of our hands, core strength, or a combination of all three, we're going to lift the bum up, arriving into Halasana. So the legs lift and the bum lifts. Maybe we're using our hands. Lifting the bum high to the earth, tucking the shoulders so we have a little bit more height, really getting a nice stretch here through thoracic spine. Lengthen through the legs, coming either onto the balls or the tops of the feet, doesn't matter. Maybe clasping the hands, maybe supporting the lower back, maybe keeping the hands on the earth. From here, draw the navel in and begin to push the hips forward, bringing the body into shoulder stand. Internally rotate the thighs, draw the navel in. Take a few breaths here. Try to find a little space between the chest and the chin. And if you can, coming into maybe some arrangements like the lotus pose, maybe just holding where you are. If you're able to take lotus, see if you can draw the knees so that the thighs run parallel with the earth and hold the knees with the hands. Up, you can come back into shoulder stand. Return to Halasana, but this time bend the knees so that you can really pull the hips up and maybe even back. Knees lightly squeeze the head and advance the tailbone towards the ceiling. Softly allow the spine to return to the earth, vertebrae by vertebrae. Try to keep the feet, and the legs close to the face, almost a reverse forward fold. Find the hands at the calves, squeezing through the front side of the body. Maybe grabbing at the top of the feet, letting the arms relax, elbows wide. Softly bend the knees, widening them, coming into happy baby. Keep the elbows into the inside of the arms, but the hands to the outside of the feet. Take a few breaths here, allow some release through the hips. We can hold here, or if it's in your practice, you can take the legs behind the head, pressing down with the tailbone as much as you can. Finding the hands clasping at the back, pushing the shoulders into the hamstrings and the head into the heels just to deepen the posture. If you're here, just remembering what's in your practice and what's accessible for you. Gently releasing when you're ready, returning to that happy baby where you may have already stayed. Just flipping the grip of the hands so that they're on the heels, and begin to straighten the knees and extend the toes towards the earth as much as you can. Remember to press down with the sternum, keep the navel into the spine. Gently release the shoulders, release the hands, and draw the knees straight and the feet up to the ceiling. Press the shoulders into the earth and tuck the chin lightly. Take a nice deep breath here. And you have two options. So if you want to end the practice, which we will be doing here on the film, we're going to just release the legs and come into Shavasana. If you would like to continue to move, I would bring the knees into the chest, give yourself a few rocks. Rock up into a seated position, standing up and beginning a more traditional vinyasa approach, or Ashtanga vinyasa, moving through perhaps the suris and some standing postures now that you've created a nice, equal, activated body. So we're going to just sneak down from legs up, down into Shavasana, widening the feet, widening the arms, closing the eyes, and maintaining awareness of body and self. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed it. Check out the other videos.